worried are you about the state of that inheritance?
Deeply worried. I've always felt that we're over-exploiting.
In a stunning turn of events that shocked the world, King Charles III, Britain's reigning monarch, has announced his decision to resign from the throne. This bombshell revelation comes just months after Charles assumed the crown following the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, in 2022. The Queen's historic 70-year reign was a symbol of stability and tradition, making Charles's sudden abdication all the more surprising. As the dust settles on this unprecedented move, questions swirl about the reasons behind the resignation, the future of the monarchy under Charles's son William, and what this means for the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. In this video, we'll explore the events leading up to Charles's big decision, the ripple effects it has caused, and what lies ahead for one of the world's oldest and most famous institutions. Background on Charles's path to the throne. To understand the significance of Charles's resignation, it's important to look back on his long and winding road to becoming king. Born in 1948, Charles Philip Arthur George was the first child of then Princess Elizabeth and Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. As the eldest son of the heir presumptive to the British throne, Charles became second in line from birth and was granted the title of Prince of Wales at age 9. From a young age, Charles was groomed for his future role as monarch, receiving a rigorous education and taking on increasing royal duties as he matured. However, Charles's personal life often overshadowed his public one. In 1981, he married Lady Diana Spencer in a fairy tale wedding watched by hundreds of millions around the globe. But behind the scenes, the marriage was troubled, and Charles's ongoing affair with Camilla Parker Bowles became tabloid fodder. Charles and Diana's 1996 divorce, followed by her tragic death in 1997, dealt a major blow to the royal family's image. In the years that followed, Charles threw himself into his philanthropic pursuits, particularly his efforts to combat climate change and promote sustainable living. He also worked to rehabilitate Camilla's public standing, and the two finally married in 2005. Still, Charles remained a sometimes controversial figure, known for his outspoken views and unconventional approach to the role of Prince of Wales. Everything changed in September 2022. When Queen Elizabeth passed away at the age of 96. Charles, then 73, automatically became king, taking the regnal name Charles III. His coronation in Westminster Abbey the following year was a solemn ceremony steeped in tradition, officially marking the start of his reign. In his first speech as monarch, Charles pledged to follow his mother's example of lifelong service. But behind the scenes, the new king was grappling with the weight of his new responsibilities and the limitations of his role. The resignation announcement. Less than a year into his reign, King Charles once again found himself at the center of a media firestorm. On a rainy Tuesday morning in London, the king pre-recorded a brief video message from his study in Buckingham Palace. Dressed in a somber suit and tie, Charles looked directly into the camera and delivered a bombshell statement. "I have made the difficult decision to step down as your king, effective immediately. After much reflection and consultation with my family, I have concluded that I can best serve the monarchy and the British people by passing the torch to the next generation." The palace simultaneously released an official announcement providing minimal additional details, stating that Charles would now be known as His Majesty King Charles III, the former sovereign, and that his heir, Prince William, would ascend the throne as King William V. The news quickly spread, sparking a frenzy of speculation and analysis. Members of the royal family were reportedly blindsided by the decision, with insiders describing scenes of shock and disbelief behind palace walls. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak hastily convened an emergency cabinet meeting to discuss the constitutional implications. In a statement outside 10 Downing Street, Sunak thanked Charles for his service and pledged his government's support for the new king. On the streets of London and across social media, the British public grappled with the unprecedented turn of events. Some expressed disappointment, arguing that Charles had a duty to continue his reign. Others applauded his honesty and willingness to put the needs of the monarchy first. The prevailing sentiment was one of shock. After all, monarchs typically serve for life. Abdications are vanishingly rare, and the last one, by Charles's great-uncle Edward VIII in 1936 to marry American divorcee Wallis Simpson, had thrown the British crown into an existential crisis. In this case, the reasons were less clear-cut. Reasons behind the decision. In the days and weeks following Charles's resignation, a clearer picture began to emerge of the factors that had driven his decision. According to palace insiders, the king had privately struggled with the immense pressure and scrutiny that came with the role of monarch, feeling constrained by the strict protocols and traditions that governed his every move. For much of his life, Charles had been known for his outspoken views on a range of issues, from architecture to alternative medicine. As Prince of Wales, he had used his platform to advocate for causes he cared about, even when they proved controversial. But as king, Charles found himself in a more tightly circumscribed role, expected to remain neutral on political matters and avoid any hint of bias. Moreover, at 74 years old, Charles was keenly aware that he had limited time left to make his mark. He reportedly felt that his energy would be better spent on his personal passions, such as environmentalism and interfaith dialogue, rather than the day-to-day demands of constitutional monarchy. As one source put it, His Majesty realized that he could do more good as a former king than as a sitting one. There were also whispers of tensions within the royal family. Some observers pointed to the strained relationship between Charles and his heir, Prince William, suggesting that the king may have felt overshadowed by his popular son. Others speculated about the influence of Queen Camilla, Charles's second wife, who had faced harsh criticism from the British public for years and was seen as a moderating force on her husband. Ultimately, it seems that Charles's decision was motivated by a mix of personal and pragmatic factors. In private meetings with his family and advisors, the king expressed his belief that the monarchy needed to modernize to remain relevant in the 21st century. He felt that William and his wife, Kate, with their youth and relatability, were better equipped to connect with a new generation of Britons. There were also concerns about Charles's health. Though the palace remained tight-lipped, rumors swirled that the king had been dealing with undisclosed medical issues that made the rigors of the role difficult to bear. Some even went so far as to suggest that Charles's resignation was a face-saving way to step aside gracefully before any potential health crises could compromise his ability to carry out his duties. Regardless of the reasons, one thing was clear. Charles's resignation represented a seismic shift in the history of the British monarchy. Never before had a king voluntarily relinquished the throne in peacetime. As the nation and the world grappled with the implications, attention turned to the man who would now bear the weight of the crown, Prince William, the newly minted king, William V. Transition to King William V. For Prince William, the morning of his father's resignation began like any other. The 41-year-old heir was at home with his wife Kate and their 3 children when the news broke. According to reports, William received a brief phone call from Charles, informing him of the decision just minutes before the public announcement. Despite his years of preparation, William was reportedly stunned by the suddenness of his ascension. He always knew this day would come, but I don't think anyone expected it to happen so soon. A source close to the prince told reporters, "It's a huge responsibility and he's feeling the weight of it." Later that day, William was summoned to Buckingham Palace for an emergency meeting with his father and the Accession Council, a ceremonial body made up of privy councillors, great officers of state, and other senior officials. In a solemn ceremony, Charles signed the instruments of abdication, officially relinquishing the throne. William was then proclaimed king with Camilla, now the Queen Mother, and Kate, the new Queen Consort, by his side. In his first speech as monarch, William paid tribute to his father's lifetime of service and pledged to continue the work of modernizing the monarchy. "I am deeply aware of the responsibilities and challenges that come with this role," he said. "But I am also excited by the opportunity to lead the monarchy into a new era, one that is more transparent, more accountable, and more responsive to the needs and aspirations of the British people." Behind the scenes, however, the transition was not without its challenges. William, who had expected to have more time to prepare for his reign, now found himself thrust into the role of king with little warning. He had to quickly assemble a team of advisors, take over his father's duties, and begin planning his own coronation, all while dealing with the emotional fallout of Charles's resignation within his own family. For Kate, the transition was equally sudden. The former Duchess of Cambridge, who had been widely praised for her poise and grace in her royal role, now found herself in the spotlight as the new queen consort. She faced the daunting task of supporting her husband while also carving out her own identity as a monarch. Perhaps the most significant change, however, was for William and Kate's eldest son, Prince George. At just 10 years old, George went from being third in line to the throne to heir apparent overnight. The young prince, who had largely been shielded from the media glare, now faced a lifetime of duty and public scrutiny. It was a stark reminder of the unique pressures and expectations that come with being born into the royal family, global reactions, and the monarchy's future. As news of Charles's resignation and William's accession spread around the world, reactions were mixed. In the United Kingdom, many expressed sadness at the end of Charles's reign, while others welcomed the prospect of a younger, more modern monarchy under William and Kate. In the Commonwealth realms, the 15 countries that recognize the British monarch as their head of state, the response was more varied. Some, like Canada and Australia, issued statements reaffirming their commitment to the monarchy and congratulating William on his new role. Others, however, saw the transition as an opportunity to reevaluate their own ties to the British crown. In Barbados, which had announced its intention to become a republic and remove the Queen as head of state before Elizabeth's death, the news was greeted with a sense of vindication. "This only underscores the need for us to chart our own course as an independent nation," Prime Minister Mia Mottley said in a statement. Meanwhile, in countries like Jamaica and Belize, which had expressed similar Republican sentiments in recent years, Charles's resignation added fuel to the debate over whether to cut ties with the monarchy altogether. As one Jamaican politician put it, "If the king himself can walk away from the throne, why can't we?" Elsewhere, comparisons were drawn to the last time a British monarch had abdicated, the 1936 crisis triggered by Edward VIII's decision to step down to marry Wallis Simpson. But while that abdication had been driven by a personal scandal, Charles's decision was seen as a more calculated move, driven by a desire to ensure the long-term stability and relevance of the monarchy. Still, the resignation raised questions about Charles's legacy and the loose ends left behind by his brief reign. What would happen to his signature initiatives, like the Prince's Trust and the Duchy Originals brand? How would history remember a king who had spent his entire life preparing for a role he ultimately chose to give up? For many Britons, the contrast with Charles's mother, Queen Elizabeth II, was stark. The late Queen had been a symbol of unwavering dedication and duty, famously vowing on her 21st birthday to serve her country for her entire life. Charles, by contrast, had chosen to step aside, leaving some to wonder whether the monarchy's days were numbered. Others, however, saw Charles's decision as a necessary step towards ensuring the monarchy's survival in the 21st century. With the rise of anti-monarchist sentiment and the growing influence of younger generations who were less deferential to the royal family, many argued that the institution needed to evolve to remain relevant. In this view, William and Kate represented a new kind of monarchy, one that was more accessible, more engaged with the public, and more willing to embrace change. By focusing on core issues like mental health and early childhood development, the new king and queen consort had the opportunity to redefine the role of the royal family for a new era. At the same time, there were those who questioned whether the monarchy was still necessary at all. With the UK facing a host of pressing challenges, from Brexit to the COVID-19 pandemic to the climate crisis, some argued that the country could ill afford the expense and distraction of a royal family. The idea of a hereditary head of state, they argued, was fundamentally at odds with modern democratic values. As the dust settled on Charles's resignation and William's accession, one thing was clear: the British monarchy was entering uncharted territory. The institution that had weathered wars, scandals, and upheavals for centuries was now facing perhaps its greatest challenge yet. The question was not whether it could survive, but whether it should, and in what form. In the end, King Charles III's reign will be remembered as one of the shortest and most consequential in British history. His decision to abdicate the throne after just a year was a seismic event that shook the foundations of the monarchy and raised profound questions about its future. For Charles himself, the road to the throne was a long and often difficult one. Born into a life of privilege and duty, he struggled to find his place in a rapidly changing world. His personal life was marked by tragedy and scandal, from the breakdown of his marriage to Diana to the years of public criticism he endured for his relationship with Camilla. Yet through it all, Charles remained committed to the causes he believed in, using his platform to advocate for issues like environmentalism, interfaith dialogue, and traditional architecture. As Prince of Wales, he carved out a unique role for himself as a voice for change and innovation within the royal family. When he finally ascended to the throne after his mother's death, however, Charles found himself confronted with the reality of the monarchy's limitations. Bound by tradition and protocol, he struggled to reconcile his own vision for the institution with the demands of his role as head of state. In the end, he made the difficult decision to step aside, passing the crown to his son in the hope that William could lead the monarchy into a new era. For the royal family and the United Kingdom as a whole, Charles's abdication represents a moment of both crisis and opportunity. The monarchy, an institution that has endured for more than 1,000 years, must now adapt to a rapidly changing world or risk becoming irrelevant. William and Kate, as the new king and queen consort, have the chance to redefine the role of the royal family for a new generation, focusing on issues that matter to ordinary Britons and engaging with the public in new and innovative ways. At the same time, Charles's resignation raises larger questions about the ongoing relevance of the monarchy in a modern democratic society. With anti-monarchist sentiment on the rise and younger generations increasingly skeptical of inherited privilege, the future of the institution is far from certain. One thing, however, is clear: the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II, the monarch who dedicated her life to service and duty, will continue to loom large over the royal family. As King Charles III, the man who chose to relinquish the crown, fades into history, it is the memory of his mother that will endure, a symbol of the steadfast commitment and unwavering sense of duty that has defined the monarchy for generations. As for what the late Queen herself would have made of her son's decision, one can only speculate. But perhaps in the end, she would have understood better than anyone the weight of the crown and the toll it can take on those who wear it. For in the story of King Charles III and his abdication, we see the humanity behind the monarchy, the struggles, the doubts, and the difficult choices that define a life of service to others.